Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today I'm chatting with Bridget Barrett. She is the email marketing manager at CNBC. Welcome, Bridget.
Hi, thanks, Natalie. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm very excited to dive into your career journey and just kind of how you've transferred across different industries. But before we jump into all of that, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. I'm based in New York City. I've been here for, I think about 17 years now, maybe 15.
Oh my
I
gosh.
moved here right after college and I love New York, so I'm always here. And currently I work at CNBC, so I'm just about to finish up my second year there. And I've had a journey where I've started and completely changed industries. So I'm excited to talk about that and the successes and triumphs and pitfalls I've seen from that as well. But I'm a marketer in New York City, working out in CNBC and just enjoying life.
Amazing. Okay, so Bridget gave us a little sneak peek, but Bridget very much has had some career changes, which I'm really excited to talk about because I love sharing non-traditional career journeys. I love just kind of showing that there's not one right way to get to where you are, and oftentimes it takes a trial and error to actually figure out where you want to be and what you're supposed to do. So we're going to rewind the clock a little bit and go back to your first role, which was in fashion, or one of your earlier roles, which was in fashion at Lucky Brand Jeans. So can you tell me a little bit about your time there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been very much a creative my whole life, doing various types of art. Obviously, just very interested in New York, in fashion, being a girl in New York. So naturally, I was trying to find that creative outlet at work. And I got lucky enough to have this position as a merchandiser for the Lucky Brand accessories line. And I absolutely love that job. I was so excited to go to work every day. I was, on the floor, making things with my hands, putting things together, working on the computer, doing all these cool things, working with awesome designers, and they just put this amazing stuff together. So I really, really loved that opportunity that I had there. Unfortunately, I did get hit by the financial crisis in 2008. So I was laid off from that job. And, I was always like, I'd love to come back one day, just the circumstances. But so that it was just such a great opportunity for me there. And I kind of fell in love with that whole concept of creating and seeing your creations out in the wild. And I really love that. So I kind of chased that journey a little bit and tried to find a couple other places like that. But yeah, Lucky Brand for me was a real special one. And I just totally loved it. And the team was super great.
So you kind of explored this passion for fashion, which I mean, doing it in New York is just, I think, the dream for so many
Yeah,
of us. But looking back at your education, you studied English and Spanish. Is that correct for your bachelor's?
I did at Villanova University. So graduated with a degree in English.
Okay, so when you were back in school, did you know, was that what you wanted to do, was to go into fashion? Was it that, would you want to go into marketing? Do you want to go into merchandising? Did you know that that was your path back then? Or kind of how did you kind of stumble upon, merchandising and fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't. I was definitely a kid who grew up, just loving to create and be a part of that and reading and writing. And when I got to college, I was very much undecided. Absolutely loved college, definitely took advantage and had a good time there and studied and did all the good stuff that you're supposed to do. And then when it came down to it, with Villanova, it was they didn't have those like marketing departments and those type of things. So I really fell into that English role there, the English major role, and just learned to read and write, really honed my communication skills and kind of just made the right connections and met people there. And that was such a great opportunity for me. So graduating with that degree in English lit and being able to approach any job, what I found is it's been very, very helpful for me in terms of communication, right? Being able to write clearly what my thoughts are, being able to put that on paper and really work well with others. So that's really the beneficial thing I got out of that. And then from there, I wanted to build, with my passions, really find that creative role for myself and kind of find my way there. So while they don't like exactly connect in terms of where my career's landed, I think it's been a great foundation for me to have. So yeah, it just kind of pivoted ways. And I always kind of just said, I can read and I can write really, really well, and I'll do it and I'll adapt it for whatever the situation may be. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about marketing is you can kind of come in with any type of background and find success. And I think sometimes for women that I talk to, they maybe decide later that they want to go into marketing and they don't have the degree in marketing. Basically, to what you're saying is that that's okay because you can find transferable skills and whichever your degree was and apply them to your job.
Absolutely. I think especially with marketing, right? It's being able to see from various different perspectives. So I think as long as you have that drive to succeed, you can take your background and really morph it, because I think marketing too, like you're marketing to other people, right? So you know as a consumer what you're expecting, what you want to hear. So it's really just a way of being able to adapt to a different kind of consumer. And so, yeah, you can really lend your skills from anywhere to kind of transform into marketing.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you did merchandising at Lucky Brand. You then went over to Haskell Jewels, and you also you were an account merchandiser there for about 2 years before going on as a senior account manager somewhere else. So tell me kind of about this time, because I think this is like the couple years before you switched into sales and then marketing. What were you learning about this space? What did you love and what didn't you love?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think in a lot of careers too, but specifically fashion, you do kind of have to jump around to find those opportunities and that sort of stuff. So I did go between a couple of smaller fashion houses for accessories and everything. And it was great. The people I worked with, again, super talented, super, super great. And what I found was just the industry as a whole is being so challenging. So fashion in general, and I think it has that reputation of being rather volatile type of thing. I never found that opportunity that was like Lucky Brand to, really connect and go. It was just very up and down a lot of times. So for me, while I was going through that whole, switching from different places and kind of trying to, claw my way up to get promoted and get bigger opportunities and different experiences, it just became, like that burnout of the constant up and down, because it's so cyclical in terms of how the economy is performing, how consumer behavior is happening. And so, the up and down for me was a lot. And it took a few years for me to kind of realize, like, I'm going to look for a more steadier type of career where, I can get the right skills that I have and be agile across any kind of industry. So there's always an opportunity for me. So that's kind of the reason I made that big switch, was just, it takes a toll. It's a very, very intense type of industry. And, I gave it a good try and I gave it a couple of years and I really did love it and made some really great connections there, but ultimately jumped over to a more like sales marketing role and tried to get more behind, the technical skills online and site building and coding and all of that kind of stuff. So just did, essentially it was really just a decision to change for the best, so I could plan and project into the future.
Do you find that that environment is prevalent within all fashion roles, or was it just merchandising where you were finding yourself needing to kind of like move roles really quickly or finding kind of that unstable environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I mostly focused on merchandising, and which came in with a lot of different skills of project management, sales, all of that. I think it's just typical of the industry in general, right? People, it's like trends. So you're constantly having to change for whatever the trend is, and you're still like, 3 seasons behind. So it's all this planning and guesswork and all of that. And so yeah, it just ended that way.
Yeah, for our listeners, just to like give some perspective on kind of the career journey before. So after this, you went over to Brand Model Group. You were there for 5 years. Okay, so Bridget was there for 5 years. All before looking at those other roles, you were there for like just under 2 years. It was like a little under 2 years, next role, a little under 2 years, next role. And it's really interesting that you say that about the fashion industry, because I've also noticed this about other guests I've had. One guest I had on, her name is Carly Baum, and she has an incredible work history. She's worked at a bunch of luxury fashion brands that we all know and love, but each of those stints was very short. And I remember it was like our first podcast episode that went viral, and it was because I was like sharing, I was super excited about our episode. And everyone was like, wait, she switched jobs every 2 years. Like what? Like basic, I mean, comments on online never are positive. But it's very interesting that you say that, because I've noticed that from other guests as well, that in that industry, and especially in New York, because a lot of those guests were from New York as well, is that you do switch very frequently. And so that also is, I think, a really good point you make, that if you want to go into that space, to also be mindful of like, are you okay with that? Or would you prefer to be able to kind of stay with the company and grow there long term?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the head there because, and I think it does span across all of that. It's just so cyclical and so trend focused that you have to really be okay with making the jump, because unless you're gonna, claw your way up there, there's no one that's going to hand you that opportunity. You really have to be advantageous about it and try to find the right spot. And for me, I love to build long-term projects, and I love to see what I put in out in the market to, mature and see how it performs and really kind of build something special. And so for me with fashion, it was changing so frequently and so hard to keep up in terms of like where I wanted to go and where the product wanted to go. So for me, it was, I don't regret any of those years in that industry. I had a blast in my 20s and, really got to do cool things and be able to see that, when people ask, oh, yeah, I work in fashion in New York, it really is kind of a bit of a dream there. But then, as you get older, you want to have a more steady flow to things, and you kind of really start thinking much more ahead of the future and where you really want to be. So for me, it was kind of pivoting from that to give myself additional skills to excel in a different area.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also understand that not all things are for you at different stages in your life. And that, yeah, like you said, when I'm in my 20s, that's great. Running around New York, changing jobs, working in fashion, living like Sex in the City life.
Yeah,
And then when you get older, your perspective changes, and what you need also changes. What you need from your job can shift as well.
absolutely.
So tell me about the switch then, because then you made, I mean, complete changes
Yeah, yeah, it was a big
over
change.
to auto, so, an auto company. So tell me a little bit about your time that you were there for almost 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was one of those roles where it was, I networked and I worked hard to find a situation that would allow me to kind of explore this type of role. So it was really focused in sales and sort of evolved into a marketing role. And this is the place where I learned essentially what I wanted to do. So I was also very lucky enough to have a super amazing boss, and she was so, so great. And I would have to say that was a big factor of me staying for so long. And I think, again, we can touch on this later, is those relationships that you build within those companies really do affect you and kind of determine whether you stay or go. But for me, what I loved so much about this, not only the autonomy to kind of create a system that didn't exist, because my role was, it was kind of what I made it. They brought me on as extra help for being able to facilitate the sales team. It's a larger corporation that owns many different dealerships in the area. So my main focus was the sales funnel for getting leads that came in, and then communicating effectively with them to then, increase sales, bring people into the dealerships and all of that. So I managed a couple different sales teams and a couple of different, phone teams, and we just focused mostly on the communication. So this is where I really got my first taste of that automated journey for when someone comes into, processes a lead, and how you speak to them and how we dynamically speak to this person. So it's more of a one-to-one, but effectively managing all of the leads, because hundreds would come in a day, if you're lucky. And yeah, so this is a role that I really took to it, and I just decided I saw holes at that. I tried to look at it as like, how can I help improve? And also, it was a bit commission based, so that always helps kind of drive you. But it was really looking for those holes where I could help and improve, and that I kind of fell in love with that customer journey of like making them feel so special and being able to effectively do that with a larger audience at one time. And that's really where I kind of developed and honed those skills to then become a marketer.
Yeah, marketing automation is a really interesting that's kind of where your marketing career started, because obviously it's that space is growing tremendously. I think that we just keep hearing more and more teams prioritize this within their marketing strategy. So I'm curious, you kind of mentioned some of those things that you did learn about marketing automation, but are there any other insights you could share about marketing automation, or maybe for those listening who don't exactly know what that is, if you could explain that, and then maybe some kind of key things you learned during your time here about marketing automation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so marketing automation is the goal, right? You are trying to find ways for the system to do the work for you, so then you can move on and focus on the next part. So marketing automation is creating logic based on specific criteria, so data points that come into you, and customer behavior. So what are those data points that you have? And then building a journey. I love to think of it like those books where it's like choose your own adventure, right? So you have to think through all the possible journeys that you could possibly send someone on. I think AI being involved now is going to help with that lift a ton, but you still have to know the basics. You start with the if and or kind of logic and figure out where these people are going to go. So it was really kind of fun to build out those journeys. You whiteboard things, you really take a step back and think of all the possibilities. Are you going to get all the possibilities? Of course not. You're going to miss things. You're going to constantly be perfecting, constantly testing, trying to find those different things. But that presented this really unique challenge of trying to figure out the best way to communicate to people. And so through various tools, being organized, being creative, these are all things that you really need, that I pulled on from my past experiences and put into this to really be able to create the best experience. I know we all get tons of emails, we all get marketed to all the time. So it's like finding that niche where you're going to find that attention and bring that person in to do the action that you're asking them to do. So it's fun to look at it like a challenge. Can it be frustrating? Of course, you miss things, you try to figure out things, but you learn every single time you develop something. So really with this role at the automotive company, like I got to see various different journeys. I got to perfect it all the time, find holes, plug those holes, use automation really to kind of help me move fast because I'm just one person trying to communicate to all of these people and set up my sales team for success. So being able to help them too. So yeah, it was really kind of where I got my first taste of that, and marketing automation is always the goal. I'm still struggling to get there in this current role that I'm in now. It's just trying to figure out doing the work, doing the planning. So it's always very interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear about. I'm also curious because from what I know about the auto industry and what I know about going into dealerships is that they're predominantly male dominated, at least with the workforce. Was that the case for you? Like, were you coming in as a female leader and having to manage large teams of men? And if so, were there any challenges you faced doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. The car industry is very male dominated. When I came in, I just did a lot of observing, trying to figure things out. I took a beat, introduced myself. I always try to lead with kindness and really connect with people on a one-to-one level so I understand their frustrations. And so what I did was come in and just be kind and really try to adapt and understand. And so from there, once I established who I was, what I was doing there, who I am, and connecting with these people, I started to ramp up that leadership authority type of thing. Like, I know what you guys should be doing. I know they know how to sell the cars. I know how to get people in the door for you. So it's like that synergy of working together to figure that out. And honestly, like just believing in myself and putting myself as a, I know what I'm doing here, so let me help you, really kind of gave me a sense of, people would look and say, oh, she knows what she's doing, so I'm going to trust her, and she's got a proven track record. So it's really ramping yourself up to just have the confidence and believe in yourself, and then people will, hopefully respond well to you. And it was certainly intimidating. I didn't know anything about cars. I didn't know that, but I know people and I can talk to them and figure that out. So I just relied on my strength to kind of lead me through. And I ended up being able to, effectively communicate with 7, sometimes 8 different dealerships, and get our sales team all on one board and let them know, like, I'd walk in and be like, I'm here, I'm checking in, how are things going? And people would be like, oh, I was to the point where I was like able to see the communication between the customer and the salesperson. So they knew I was watching, they knew what I was doing, but all in an effort to help them, effectively sell as well. So I just really came in with some confidence and really tried to, learn as well as show how I can help others. And I created this respect, I hope. And, it just worked, but it's intimidating for sure. You just really have to kind of believe in yourself and buckle down and show them what what you're doing. So.
I love how you mentioned that you first went in and listened and then you established your authority. So instead of like coming in hot and being like, I know what I'm doing, like, let me tell you what to do. Your first step was just, okay, let me observe, let me see what's going on. Let me show them that I'm not just like, that I'm actually taking time to understand them and their role. And then the next thing you did was establish authority, like show them that you know what you're doing, not trying to like diminish your career history, diminish your accomplishments, or diminish your capabilities, but kind of lead with that. And then I think like at the end of, like you said, your job is to help them like make more sales, which makes them more money. So like you guys have that kind of in common. And so very interesting to hear. And I can also imagine very intimidating when you don't even, yeah, like if I went in, I know nothing about cars and now I'm here kind of leading teams selling cars.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I had an amazing boss at this role, and she was also female. So she helped me immensely, so having that mentor, we're still great friends to this day. And now she's the head of a dealership. So, she worked her way up there and I really followed her example a ton. Yeah, so I just was lucky enough to find that in that environment. And she showed me, just tell them you know what you're doing, and fake it till you make it. Sometimes that helps.
Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely great experience. So I learned from a really great mentor there.
So after your stint here, you went over to Wiley and you really kind of dialed in on marketing automation there. So tell me a little bit about your switch and your transition there.
Yeah, of course. So I was at the automotive group for a little under 5 years. So towards the end, towards the middle and the end, I knew that this was something I wanted to do. But I needed the skill set of understanding web development. I didn't know how to code. I didn't know any of that. And for me, being able to do that, it's being creative online, right? I've done Photoshop and all of those fun things, but like being able to use a programming language to be creative, that was something that was really cool to me. So I ended up going back to school at night, twice a week, all the way out in Brooklyn. The hustle was there for sure. Because I love to learn in the classroom too. And so for me, that was what worked. And I worked really hard for 6 months, developed some websites, did those types of things, and really just focused on a skill set for myself. I try to look at my time now specifically as everything I do is an investment, right? So while this was a lot of time and effort and money to get there and learn these things, like it paid off for me in the end, because it was just, it changed my trajectory, and it gave me these skills as an asset to be able to be hired. So once I completed that and started to get comfortable with coding, I got a job at Wiley, which is a large publishing company. And I was there for about 2 years. And what was so great about this role was it was so very technical. So I was able to do trial and error here, figure out, I took the skills that I learned in the classroom and put it down on paper, essentially. I was programming every email that came through in my channel and really focusing that and having fun with different ways to spruce it up, and just really honed my craft at this company. And I was so grateful to have those 2 solid years of having this really, really solid foundation for how email specifically functions, but how it all is incorporated within the web and doing those technical design skills. So it was a great role that I had there.
So tell me about that course that you took. So you said that it was for coding, or can you like share any info about that course?
Yeah, of course. It was through the SUNY schools. So I took it out in Brooklyn, and it was just that. It was learning HTML, CSS, and some of the lighter coding languages, like, we like not Python and all of those. Gosh, I don't even use them anymore, but JSON and all of those different types of things. And just it gave me this whole appreciation. I've used the internet for, since it was born. And for me, it was like eye-opening to understand how it all works and how it all comes together. Not only is it great for my job, but personally I can, maneuver so quickly and understand things a lot better. But yeah, it was done through the SUNY schools. I can always, and of course I can share that information with you if you want to share that out. But it was just super great and learning, it's nerdy, but learning was fun. It was cool to be back in a classroom and really working hard and seeing how other people adapt and do things differently than you do it, and just seeing what the talent that's out there. But yeah, super great experience. Took about 6 months, and it was really great.
I'm super interested in this piece of this because I think there's a lot of areas you can put your time toward. There's a lot of different certifications that you can take, and also just contrasting your English like background to then going and getting a coding certification is also something I'm imagining you never thought that you would be getting when you were back in school. So is this course like something that marketing automation jobs require? Is it that it's a specific languages that they require? Or how did you kind of say like, hey, this is something that's really going to be an investment, because there's so many options out there, specifically with like coding and language, there's a lot of options. So kind of why did you pick that water, how did you know that would unlock the most opportunities for you?
Yeah, of course. So, to your question of how did I choose this? I networked a little bit. I sought out people that had roles that I thought were interesting along with that. And I would reach out to them, have a coffee, have a talk, and say, how did you get interested in what you're doing? What kind of skills do I need to have to be able to be successful in a role like this? And so through talking to other people, they said, it would really be beneficial, I think, if you understood these coding languages to then get into these more digital marketing roles. So it was really just through networking and talking with people and getting an understanding of what they thought was important. And then of course, I researched the courses. You can do free boot camps. It's all dependent on how you like to learn. So you could do free boot camps that they have. You could do it in a weekend, but it all just depends on your learning style. For me, I wanted to take it slow and really understand. So I shopped around, I looked at a few different courses, talked to a couple of people, and just ultimately settled on this one. It was twice a week. It felt doable, a few hours a night, and it ended up being the perfect fit for me to do that. And now, in terms of, is this something you need for digital marketing in general? No, not necessarily. It really does depend on your role. For my first role at Wiley, absolutely, I had to learn to code and do all of that. That would have not been possible if I didn't know those languages. But I think the internet has evolved to a certain spot now anyways, and a lot of these marketing automation tools that you don't necessarily need the typical full knowledge of coding. But is it very helpful? Yeah, of course. It helps me understand what will render well. I can predict issues. I know how to solve issues rather quickly. At my current role, there's within the marketing in that department, I'm sure our engineers and all of them are perfectly capable and wonderful at coding, but I'm one of the few that understand it. So I become much more valuable to be able to help people resolve issues, find bugs, do things very quickly on the fly. So it really is dependent on what your role is that you're looking for. For me, I love being able to say that I code because I think, again, and I think there's groups out there, girls who code and all of those things. And it holds this, air of understanding on another level. So for me, it's always, I love to be able to say that I do it. Am I rusty today? Of course. But, just a little practice, it comes back. But yeah, again, it just kind of depends on the role that you're looking for. But the understanding of having it there is always helpful.
Yeah, I can see that. And I can see that it makes you significantly more competitive in the job market as well, having that skill set, because not everybody's going to go take those night classes or go, spend their weekends learning how to code. There was a time when I tried to learn how to code. It was so hard. It was so frustrating. I think I gave up after 1 week. I tried to do one of the self-paced courses, and it's hard.
Yes.
It's not easy.
That's why I went classroom. I had a feeling that would be the same for me. So
And then for those who are interested in the course Bridget took, you could go check out her LinkedIn. I have it pulled up here as full stack web development course, CRS 200 at SUNY. But you can maybe kind of look at what she took as a baseline for other ones. Or if you live in New York, maybe that's a good option.
yeah.
Okay. So 2 years doing marketing automation, really diving in there. And then you moved on to SiriusXM. And then here I think Wiley, you did mostly email. So over at SiriusXM, you also kind of focused there on email, and you were acquisition email marketing manager. So tell me a little bit about your time there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's interesting because I'm a huge music fan. Living in New York City, I go to concerts all the time. Not so much anymore, but I did go to a ton, and I just love music. So for me, SiriusXM, it's music in your car. So for me, that was always a goal. I could marry my past history of working in automotive and my love of music and my technology skills. Unfortunately, I started right before the pandemic. So I was really only in the office for about less than 3 months before everything shut down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm joining Sierra. I'm going to go to concerts and do all these cool things. So that was a bit of a bummer. But we're agile, we adapt and we get things done. So I, had those challenges of onboarding now, taking my technical skill that I honed at my last one and trying to understand the more, person side of marketing, understanding who's our audience and actually creating those journeys. My role at Wiley, I didn't have any say of what was going in these emails. So that was my next step, is being able to affect that. And, working at SiriusXM, they have their craft honed, right? They've been around for a long, long time. So as specific as my role was, I focused on people who in the first 6 months bought a car, we got their email address, and we were able to market to them for 6 months. They had a free trial, if you're familiar with SiriusXM. For me, what was most beneficial was seeing how everything operated in this huge arena of, there's various different teams specifically dedicated to all of these different journeys. Whereas in my last role, it was just me and I was making up all the journeys. So here I was just working on a specific section of one type of journey. And, the work from home was challenging, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people during those times, but, great experience to see how someone does it and does it really well. And has all the support teams and design teams and all of that. So it's just being like a bit of a cog in the wheel in terms of how large this was. But it was super great experience. And, I didn't get to see any concerts, but the content was always really fun to see. And, people are really passionate about music and they want recommendations and new stuff and old stuff. So it was just really fun to work in that environment. But, ultimately just the work from home and all of that, that's when I started to seek out other opportunities after, just to be able to, have something different. But no, super, super great. And it was just such a different turn from my other roles of just being such a large corporation, that was really interesting and unique. And I totally learned a ton from this company.
Yeah, what terrible timing to go to like the dream music company right when pandemic starts.
I know.
Oh, I've whenever I interview guests that get that opportunity to go to live music or whatever, I'm so jealous because it sounds so amazing. But I can definitely see how frustrating that must have been, kind of like transitioning from work from home, which, like you said, I know was a huge shift for so many people. You mentioned how large, so when you're mentioning how you were just on one part, or like one path, one funnel, was that with like, is that because of just one piece of marketing automation, or is that because their email category was so large, or kind of?
Yeah, their email was so large. So, I mean, email's funny. Everyone gets them. People love them. They hate them, all of that kind of thing. But it's the most effective channel that's out there. So SiriusXM, they've nailed it in terms of understanding where their customer comes from, what they want to see. They've, built out recommendation engines and trying to serve the right content and getting people to like actively engage with their product. And since this was such a driver for them, the team is huge. I mean, I focused acquisition. We try to get people. There's a whole other team that does, once they're a subscriber, how do they talk to that subscriber? There's win back if they've churned out of our funnel in terms of, the free trial, then we try to win them back for 3 months. So there's it's their main driver. So they have staffed it up. They have the right teams there. They have the right technology there. But that's because they have millions and millions of subscribers. So they're able to, continue to grow. And I think they've been around since, 2007, 2008 doing this. So they definitely have built out these huge teams. And they just have it perfected in terms, and, not perfected, but, there's always room for improvement. There's always changes and there's trends and all of that kind of things. But it was just being a small part of this small section. So just really interesting stuff and seeing how they were laid out. And just great experience all around.
It's super interesting how you mentioned is how large the team was and just how many different, we had teams focused on different areas. And I think that it's often forgotten how powerful email is, especially among younger generations, because I think we just so quickly think about social, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's just like where our head goes to, and we think about digital marketing so often. However, you're absolutely right that email drive sales, right? It's in our accelerator, we talk about it, how it's not influenced by third-party gatekeepers like social is, right? You don't know who's going to see your Instagram post when you post, when you post from your brand account, but if you're sending an email, it's getting into everybody's inbox. What have you noticed? Because I know now your role, which we'll talk about next, is at CNBC, where you're also doing email marketing. Are there any things you've kind of seen about email marketing or learned over the past couple of years, or any trends you're kind of seeing as we go into 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of what I'm seeing in email, it's still the driver. It's still the powerhouse. So, it's responsible for over 55% of sales for various companies. So it's still so strong. So I see a ton of focus on it. But what we're seeing coming into the future, the trends being privacy and personalization. So, Yahoo and Google are following Apple's footsteps, which totally rocked the industry, rocked the email industry. It effectively, we're not able to see opens anymore. So we're not able to understand a lot of the user behavior. So as the industry had to pivot completely, and everyone else is following suit. So what that means for us is trying to create trust with our brands, making sure that we're facilitating what the user wants. We're not over communicating to them, or communicating the right amount. We're showing them exactly what they want, because people I know I subscribe to 1 million emails. It's my job. So I get like 400 or 500, junk emails a day, but it's making sure that we're saying something important that the user needs to hear in a creative, fun way, because, email can be cumbersome. But yeah, those two trends specifically, and then how AI will work into that. That's the big focus this year for email. And then trends in terms of how things look, it changes. It all depends on your brand. It all depends on what you're trying to communicate. And that's something that I think every email marketer does, is take inspiration from other people and constantly change and test those types of things. So yeah, it's a really interesting channel, because I think people gripe about it, but who doesn't love getting like a surprise coupon savings or
Yes.
based on what you're looking for? So as long as it's a brand that I'm trusting and it's something that I'm interested in, like it's a no-brainer that would be a channel that wins.
Other than the brands that you work for, because I know you'll be biased towards them, is there any brand that you think does email marketing so well, or an email that you subscribe to that you just love reading their emails?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have different favorites for different kinds of things. Newsletters is the huge buzz these days, right? Everyone has a newsletter. Everyone's trying to perfect that. I think, Morning Brew does a great job of that. They're able to offer up, incentives to help spread the word. So they have lead generation happening on their end, and they're offering, free gifts and that kind of thing, but also serving up the right content that you want. And then in terms of like design wise, I've always loved, this will go back to my like fashion life, is like the Kate Spade. Everything has bright, bold colors, and sometimes things sparkle, and it's just really engaging, those types of things. There's a ton, and people are always shifting and doing those things. And I have a soft spot for my SiriusXM emails, or always great. Obviously my CNBC emails, but yeah, no, a lot of the fashion ones, they hit it because they have fun, interesting things to do and showcase. I think e-commerce is a little bit different than subscription, which is what I work in now. Because you can showcase so many different types of things that you're selling. So there's different ways you can post the photography and gifts and all of those kinds of things that you have there. So yeah, Kate Spade always sticks out to me because they have like the sparkle and the bright colors. And that always got to me.
That's cute. I've not subscribed to their emails, but I always love hearing what people like opening. I'm also always looking for new newsletters. I know Morning Brew is one's been for a while. Sky Society, we have our newsletter, and we're always kind of trying to like change what we put in it to see what works best. But it is really interesting. I think newsletters, I don't even know, even the past like 5 or 10 years have just like so many different brands and companies have been coming up with them. And I do love them because it's like once a week, right? Versus some brands kind of annoy you when they're emailing you all the time. So it's nice to be like, okay, I'm gonna have one email. Or I guess Morning Brews is like daily.
Yeah, it all depends, but right,
Yeah.
this is what you're signing up for. And with newsletters too, right? Of course, you're going to make a purchase on, at Zara.com. So then you're going to get Zara emails. Like it's just, it's how it goes. But with newsletters, you're effectively signing up to get the information that you want.
Yeah.
So you're able to kind of have a little more control over that. So that's why, honestly, I think that's why newsletters are such a functional channel in that purpose, because these people are asking for it and you're giving the information, which is ultimately the goal of email.
Yeah. Really interesting. Okay, let's get on to your last role, Bridget. So now at CNBC, I love kind of seeing how all of these roles connected and kind of pushed you towards this. So you are now the email marketing manager at CNBC. So tell me a little bit about your role there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what's great about digital marketing and web design and all that. These skills are transferable across industries. So I never ever saw myself working in the finance space, and I have been so delightfully surprised by how much I love this role and all of the like cool, amazing things I get to do. with CNBC, they're learning a ton of stuff, how to transfer from TV into digital. So I'm part of the direct to consumer group that we have there. And we have 2 paid subscription products, and that's mostly what I focus on. It's CNBC Pro, which gives you access to the website, full live stream, and then also a ton of investing analysis articles, ways to help you invest, stock pick ideas, all of that. And then I also work with Jim Cramer's Investing Club. And so if you know Jim Cramer, he is such a great personality on our channel. And so this is more of a educational based, bit of a hand holding way of how to invest. So those are the 2 products that I focus on the most here. And it's all very new. Our channel is just making that shift into a more digital side, offering these subscriptions. And what I actually love most about these subscriptions and being in this space is that the message here is just helping people invest and understand and learn how to make their lives better with, being able to invest in the stock market. So at the end of the day, I always take a step back and think like, it's email, it's digital marketing, everything is, as important as you make it, but it really feels good to be doing something for that aspect of life for people. And essentially what I absolutely love about this role is that we're a very small and mighty team. So it's almost like a startup within this large corporation. So we are lucky enough to have the support of a large corporation. But when it comes down to it, it's 5 or 6 of us really getting this product out there and really working hard to do it. So what I've loved most about this role is the autonomy that I do have. My boss has a lot of trust in me to develop the email channel. It's a ton of work. I am the only email marketer until recently when we hired our intern who was fabulous. So she now helps me out with all the emails. She's super creative. And this is where that creative drive comes in. We have a design team that helps support all of CNBC. So we can't always rely that we're going to get that. So I fall back on my design skills and my coding skills there. But we're really in the start of creating something bigger here. And that's what's so exciting about this role. And I'm not just an email marketer there too. I help with events and I'm working with talent on air and I'm working with, all of these different groups here. So it's really been a space where I've been able to flourish and really work with all these different groups to then build something bigger. So yeah, I'm like really talking about it, but it's been a great experience. I'm actually about to hit my 2 years here.
Congratulations. That's amazing. It's lovely just to see, as I said, just kind of like all the pieces kind of coming together, and now where you get to feel like you get to use all of your, the experiences you've gotten from the various roles you've had in the various industries. And now, like you said, when you feel like the work that you're doing also has a greater impact just on people's lives in general. One thing that I always love to talk about when it comes to career, what I call career contentment, or just feeling fulfilled with work that you do, is that you feel like your work is actually helping others. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to work at a nonprofit, but like you said, that you genuinely feel like the work that you are creating is making a difference and helping other people in a positive way. And that is such a huge driver of feeling happy at your job. Same with liking your boss and who you work with is also super big. And so I always kind of love hearing those things outside of just the subject matter of the work that you're doing, those other things that make people love their job, which is really apparent that you love yours. So looking back, Bridget, at all of these roles, I mean, we've gone from fashion to automotive to, I guess, music, finance, we've gone all over the place. What advice would you have to someone that's kind of maybe earlier in their career that you'd like to share?
Yeah, of course. I mean, my journey brought me to where I am, so I can't say I'd change things, but I'd say spend more time focusing early on of what you really want. When I started, I really wanted to be creative and in fashion, and I should have recognized sooner that I needed to make that change. So I would say, even if you start in marketing and you have a role, continue to network, continue to talk to other people and see what they like about their roles, and see, really just always be thinking like, is this what you want right now? And is this what you want in the future? And just continue to always hone your craft. You graduate and you're like, hey, I have no more homework, I can just do, but there's always room for self-improvement. There's always room to, like I said before, you have to kind of look at life of everything you do, who you talk to, what you read, what you watch, everything, you know, who's in your life, like it's all an investment in yourself. So if you look at it that way and you think, you know, it's going to be annoying to take this class and go all the way out to Brooklyn, but like I'm investing in myself and for my future. So for me, that's how I kind of have shifted to look at things and make sure I'm setting myself up for success. And then also like lead with kindness. I know that, you know, times are crazy and everything, but I've found a lot of success specifically in my current role by just listening to others and offering help in a kind way. And so, you know, when you do that, you start to build these relationships and you really start to be able to count on other people to help you when you need that help. So those two kind of principles are how I try to lead my current life and really, you know, just invest in myself and those around me, and hopefully we'll all work together to make something great and just feel good at the end of the day.
That is beautiful. Thank you so, so, so much, Bridget, for walking us through your career journey and sharing your advice. I've had so much fun chatting with you. So thank you again for coming on the Sky Society podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. I really appreciate it.